Brogan Private Dick, Northern Pipeline. Boston, October 1988. The wind off the harbor carried a sharper bite than usual, and the city felt like it was holding its breath. Brogan stood on the Charlestown Navy Yard docks at 3:17 a.m., collar turned up, camel glowing in the dark. Beside him, Major John Rush stood perfectly still, hands in the pockets of his old field jacket, eyes scanning the water like he was still walking point in Vietnam. "They're back at it," Rush said quietly, "harder than before." Brogan exhaled smoke. "Vinny." "Worse, Vinny's getting squeezed out. New players, smarter, better connected." Rush handed him a small folder. Inside were blurry photos taken from a distance. Shipping containers off a rusty trawler flying a Nova Scotia flag, small wooden crates being unloaded at night, and Chinese markings on some of the packaging. "Heroin and fentanyl," Rush continued. "Coming in two ways now. Small boats from Nova Scotia, they offload outside the 12-mile limit and run it in on fishing vessels. The other route is over the Canadian border through Vermont and New Hampshire, then down I-93. The Chinese triads are supplying the pure product. Someone in Boston is handling distribution and cutting it." Brogan flipped through the photos. "And the mob?" "Fragmented. Vinny's crew is scrambling. Slick Eddie Malone and the Velvet Vipers are trying to muscle in. But the real operator is someone new. They're calling him the broker. He doesn't show his face. He just moves product and money." Brogan closed the folder. "So we put it down, same as always." Rush gave the smallest nod. "Same as always." They started at the edges. Brogan took the docks and Southie. Rush worked the northern routes and his old military contacts. Dave rode shotgun in Brogan's coat pocket. Marmalade, for once, stayed useful. His nightly dumpster runs near the waterfront gave him an excuse to prowl the alleys and listen. The first break came when Brogan leaned on a nervous longshoreman named Sal behind the Velvet Lounge. "They're bringing it in on fishing boats from Halifax," Sal whispered. "Small loads, high purity. Then it gets cut here and moved through the construction sites and the clubs. The Vipers are providing protection now. Vinny's losing ground fast." Brogan pressed him. "Who's the broker?" Sal shook his head. "Nobody knows. He doesn't meet anyone. Uses middlemen, pays in cash and silence." 2 nights later, Rush called from a payphone up near the Canadian border. "I found one of the routes. They're using logging trucks and produce haulers crossing from Quebec and New Brunswick. The stuff from China comes into Vancouver or Halifax, then moves east. It's sophisticated, Jimmy, military-grade logistics." Brogan met him at Cheater's Tavern the next night. Tommy poured them drinks while Sue danced on stage. The back booth felt like old times. "We hit them at 3 points," Brogan said. "The Nova Scotia boats, the border runs, and the distribution hub here in Boston. But we need proof, enough to bring in the state police and the feds without them burying it." Rush nodded. "I can get us eyes on the boats. You take the city side." Dave chattered from the table, clearly ready for action. Marmalade flicked his tail, pretending he wasn't interested but staying close. The operation kicked off on a cold Thursday night. Rush and a couple of trusted ex-military friends intercepted a small trawler off the coast near Gloucester. They didn't board, they just took photos and radioed the Coast Guard with an anonymous tip. 2 containers of pure heroin from China were seized before they could be offloaded. Brogan, Dave, and Marmalade hit the distribution warehouse in South Boston. Dave slipped through the vents and mapped the layout. Marmalade caused a distraction by knocking over a stack of crates and conveniently scratching 2 Viper guards. Brogan moved in, camera clicking, documenting the cutting operation and the cash exchanges. The final piece fell when they followed a produce truck from the Canadian border down I-93. Rush was waiting at the off-ramp. One quiet intervention later, the truck was pulled over by state police with enough product to make headlines. By sunrise, The new smuggling network was bleeding badly. 3 major shipments disrupted. The broker's operation took a serious hit. Vinny Capello and Slick Eddie Malone were both scrambling, suddenly united in their hatred of Brogan and Rush. Later that morning, Brogan and Rush sat in the Dirty Spoon, drinking terrible coffee. Dave was on the table eating sunflower seeds. Marmalade was under the booth, licking his paws. Rush allowed himself one of his rare small smiles. "We didn't kill it," he said, "but we slowed it down. The Chinese supply line is disrupted. The Nova Scotia boats will think twice. The border route just got a lot hotter." Brogan lit a Camel. "For now, but they'll try again, they always do." He looked at his old friend from the jungle, the man who had once pulled his squad out of an ambush that should have ended them all. "Thanks for having my back again, Major." Rush nodded once. "Always." Dave chattered proudly. Marmalade flicked his tail in quiet agreement. Outside, the city kept moving, drugs still flowing, money still changing hands, new villains always rising. But for one more night, Brogan and Major Rush, 2 old soldiers who had learned long ago how to fight from the shadows, had put down another piece of the rot. The detective who doesn't stop, and the quiet man who still walked point. Some partnerships are forged in war. Others are forged when the war never really ends.